The atmosphere at Belmont Village is vibrant. We're a community built for life. We thrive and promote independence, engagement, social activity. It's an environment where we want our residents to have fun. And the beauty of it really is it allows our residents to age in place. They don't need to move. This is home.
When you belong to a community, it makes you feel safe. It inspires you to thrive. It honors your achievements, and it makes you feel at home. For nearly 20 years, Belmont Village Senior Living has created communities that have enriched the lives of seniors and their families, providing places where seniors lead healthy, purposeful lives under the care of staff who truly understand their needs. Belmont Village offers assisted living, independent living, and memory care in a continuum that supports residents when care needs change and providing for couples of varying care needs.
It's nice that we can be together. She needs a little bit more care than I do, and I don't have to do any cooking or shopping.
Aging is a gift. We invite you to embrace it with us and be a part of our community and our family. Belmont Village Senior Living, the community built for life.
Thank you for joining us today. Now that the holidays are in full force with the stores packed, the TV commercials are already on, we wanted to bring on some experts today who are going to help us understand how to make your dining experience over the holidays with your guests and family and friends as cordial and convenient for everyone. So today we have Sadie Harness and Lori Kim from the Belmont Village Senior Living. Sadie's from the Cardiff location and Kim is from the Sabre Springs location. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. So we'll start with you, Sadie. We want to start out, we have this beautiful table here and it's Thanksgiving evening and the guests have arrived. And it's not a matter of just serving the right food at the table, it's all about making the setting appropriate. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think that how you serve the food and how you set your table is just as important as what you're serving to meet your seniors' needs. And to exceed their expectations, we just need to take into account if somebody has physical disabilities or maybe some cognitive disabilities, but we want to take nothing for granted.
Can you expand on that a little bit more? What are you referring to?
For example, if you have my own father has Parkinson's, and my father likes to pretend that he doesn't have any disabilities at all, but I happen to know that setting the table in a certain way and pre-plating the food actually is really important so that he doesn't have eyes that are too small or too big, for example. He's in a great state of denial, as many of our seniors are, about their disabilities, and the presentation of the food and how you set up the buffet line is just as important as what you're serving, your special dishes.
So today you've brought this beautiful festive table, and give us some ideas about how to help our seniors navigate through the holidays with, you know, there's tons of different servings that are provided. Do you need to cut things a certain way? Do you need to have things in a certain place so that it's easier for them to reach? Help us understand some of the small nuances that are so important but are very, very hard for people to sometimes even think about doing.
Largely overlooked, yes. Do you want to start?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that you can see here is we've got some contrasting colors. I mean, we are in the holiday season, as you mentioned, or somebody did, or maybe I'm just thinking, it's here so fast. We've got holiday stuff in the stores. Here we are in the holiday season, there's beautiful colors. Not only is it lovely, but it does make a difference as far as our seniors being able to distinguish between a tablecloth, a plate, a mug. So you know, we've got residents who, or our seniors, our loved ones who their vision is changing, glaucoma, macular degeneration. There might be some cognitive decline that is impacting just the way they're able to picture things. So if you have a white tablecloth with a white plate, with a white bowl, with a white cup, it's very difficult for someone to distinguish. So, you know, just taking advantage again of the festive colors. It can be difficult if there's a whole lot of patterning for somebody, particularly if you're talking with someone with dementia. However, if you can keep in mind the contrast between a tablecloth, a dish, a cup, that's going to make a difference.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to mention too that the actual cups that we use, so the mugs that we use typically have some ridges on the edge, and we want to have a mug that's large enough for a senior who has some dexterity issues to be able to grip that mug and feel confident about it. And at Belmont Village, we really don't use saucers because sometimes clinking when you drop your mug onto a saucer can be a little overstimulating, and it can also be a little embarrassing if somebody has some tremors or if they have a weak hand and the hot coffee makes them drop it faster. It's less noticed when you're on a regular table. Same thing with the plate size. We don't want to have a plate that's too large. We'd like a medium to a smaller size plate. And if you pre-plate your food, you're in a good position not to embarrass your senior because they don't want to waste the food. It's very important that they can finish what they have on their plate, and you want to have a plate large enough to have a little bit of everything that's available to them without overwhelming them.
And I just want to add the big picture of all this and what we're trying to convey to the families that are watching this is to be aware of these things when you all gather around the table today. We know either the senior, like your father's in denial, but more likely the children are in denial. And if you can maybe set the table in this fashion, you can maybe you're almost like a one that's set properly and one that's not set properly, and see how one gravitates towards one works with the other. So very important.
Traditional china, when at the holidays, we like to bring out our best china. It's really not friendly for seniors. Everything about it. It's flimsy, it's extra large, tiny little cups, there's saucers, there's too many utensils, and it all matches. Something that might be better would be the contrasting colors, the heavier stemware, a glass that has textured sides that somebody who maybe has some poor feeling in their fingers or neuropathy can grab that and feel confident that it's not going to drop.
So if you see that the senior's not eating properly, that might be a sign that the table is not set properly.
Well, and portion size is important too. Sorry, go ahead, Lori.
Yeah, no, and I was just thinking as Sadie was speaking about the glassware, again, it's less easy to topple over. Stemware is lovely at the holidays, and I know, like you said, Sadie, we like to pull out our best china and our wonderful, beautiful wine glasses, but typically they're a little bit lighter in weight, and the stems are longer. It's easy to tip over, and again, that can be embarrassing and just hard to manage. Even our flatware, certainly not suggesting people buy special flatware. However, just having substantial, something of a weight, something that handle is easy to, to pick up and to hold on to. I know a lot of us during the holidays, we have a lot of people over, and so we might actually be using plasticware. If you did decide to do that, and certainly not suggesting you don't, but if you're able to purchase some of the heavier, nicer flatware, some of the smaller type that are, the handles are small, they're flimsy, they break easily, that kind of thing can be, again, it's dexterity and the possibility of breaking and having some of that go into somebody's food.
Also, what I noticed with my own parents is you mentioned serving size, and having things in a size where they may not need to cut a lot, or if they need to cut, have a knife that really does cut, so that they're not embarrassed by trying to fight with their food.
Yes.
So
one of the new traditions out there today is actually pre-plating the food too, which is kind of nice. So again, in my family, we had the big buffet table, or we had a big family style table where everybody was expected to reach over and start plopping food onto each other's plates, but that's embarrassing for a senior, one, if they can't get up to a buffet line because they have, balance issues, or they may not want you to serve them because they do need help cutting. So if you call home in advance and you find out what grandma or mom needs, as far as if she has dietary restrictions, or if your father has alcohol restrictions, for example, we want to know that in advance of the meal so that we can present to everybody at the same time. The host can take the opportunity to pre-plate the food for all the guests so as not to call attention to anybody who can't navigate the buffet line. It seems to work well. And then you can always double back for your seconds, which is me, seconds and thirds, and you can have as much as you want in a buffet line without drawing attention to your senior who may have trouble in that buffet line.
Yeah, absolutely.
the other thing is timing of the day to eat. So a lot of families have had the tradition of, well, we always eat at 2 or we always eat at 4. But you have to understand that when you have seniors who are coming to dinner, that based on their medication needs, that timing might need to change. It might have an effect on their appetite. It might have an effect on how much they want to eat. It may have an effect on their mood, because some people are sundowners, and sometimes a little earlier in the day is better, and others don't have good beginnings to the day, and the later in the day is a little bit better. So what do you suggest when it comes to that? Again, being proactive.
If you're going to be a proactive host, we'd suggest calling home. Calling the person who's if it's a parent or a grandparent, you want to ask the person who's responsible for them, if it's not them, their caregiver or their spouse, if they do have medication interactions, what are those and what can you do to mitigate that? Which might mean having really heavy appetizers available before we have medicine. It might mean kind of scheduling that meal, if it's an hour window, around the medicine. You know, most of us are pretty flexible on the holidays and we want to gather with everybody at the same time, but it's important to ask the questions in advance so that we have the information we need to present the best possible dinner for our families.
And how would you work around, so my dad had multiple strokes.
Work around the football game.
Yeah.
That's right, the Packers.
My dad had,
We can see where you're going. Okay.
my dad had multiple strokes, but was always a wine drinker.
Yes.
Okay. And we'd sit down to eat, and we'd pour him a glass when we poured everyone else's, and then he'd be like, my glass is empty, and we'd be like, that's okay, so is mine. What do you suggest to maybe try and get around that? Because you obviously don't want to pour them later than everybody else. You want to make them feel like they're included, but how do you get them to hold back from the second or the third glass, which they really can't have based on their medication?
Yeah, and you know what, something that is a simple thing to do is something like a wine spritzer. I mean, you can have a little less wine in it, and then you've got something else added to it so that the alcohol in one glass isn't quite as much as if you just did a full glass of wine. Then you're, running the, the opportunity to cause, disagreement with your loved one at a family get-together, and you certainly don't want, I think we all agree and we understand, these are people that we treasure. We treat them with dignity. We don't want to be standing in front of them cutting their food up on their plate like they're a child. We don't want to be telling our 85-year-old dad, you cannot have another glass of wine type of thing. It just creates that opportunity for conflict at a family get-together. And so a suggestion like that, and everybody can have wine spritzers, but maybe just kind of doing something like that.
That's a good idea.
If you have somebody that really has alcohol issues and can't have any alcohol, they do make non-alcoholic wine these days.
Yes.
And if you're the host, you can go back and very quietly from the beginning start with that non-alcoholic so it doesn't taste different and it looks no different. We get great feedback at Belmont Village about our non-alcoholic wine because we have many residents that are unable to drink wine because it interacts with medication.
Absolutely.
Or you start dinner at 4 and 5 glasses in and it's unsafe for anybody.
Yeah.
Tell us about the traditions at Belmont. Leading right into that. What traditions do you have at Cardiff by the Sea? And again, Cardiff by the Sea, if you don't know where that is, it's an amazing spot right on the coast, and it's a beautiful community, and go visit. But what traditions, holiday traditions do you have? So
at Belmont, we try and accommodate families and our dinner at the same time. So we offer a buffet, which we serve to our residents. So it's a buffet line for our families, but then we do plated meals for all of our seniors who are there. And we do that from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. So it's a midday meal so that most of our residents then return home in the evening to have either a second meal or a dessert or family time so that they're not missing out on anything. We invite our families, of course, to our meal as well, but most of our residents have two big activities for the day. The meal at Belmont, and then they get to go home with their loved ones.
Yeah.
I'll just, before Lori, finish up, I just would ask that all the family members, when they get together, that they really talk about this ahead of time and really have the patience and the understanding, and don't set up the expectations that your 90-year-old father is 55 years old and can do what he did when you were a child. There's got to be some semblance of reality, and I know that's difficult, and we've all, I think everybody here has experienced that. So if I can get any message across, is to have the right expectations going into the meal and not set up something for failure for mom and dad in their 90s or 80s. So
Yeah,
Lori,
absolutely.
I'll let you finish with the traditions.
You know, Sabre Springs does very similar to what Cardiff does. We have the 11 to 2 open. It's a buffet, very lovely buffet at the holidays, and it's where we invite the families. And you know, our families become our family, we become theirs, and it's a really lovely time. And again, as Sadie said, you know, and there are some residents that will want to go ahead and go through the buffet line themselves. However, you know, we are there for those that aren't able or choose not to serve them. And then it's just a wonderful time again to celebrate the holidays and to be with each other.
Well, is there anything that we missed in terms of what you see that you could want to get one last?
My last
pearls of wisdom.
Pearls of wisdom from Belmont Village. I think when we serve our seniors, it's important to communicate with the family in advance, just like you mentioned. You want to ask all the right questions. I would suggest that you never take anything for granted with your seniors. So all of your guests deserve special attention, but our seniors in particular, what we need to do is communicate in advance, ask the families the tough questions, and then be willing to compromise if we need to compromise.
Yeah, agreed. And just, you know, again, you know, treating people with dignity and respect, and we wanted to keep that in mind. Just, there very well may be cognitive declines or physical declines, and I think as long as we've done our homework ahead of time and remember that we do not want to treat someone as if they're a child. They're not. So that would be my kind of words of wisdom or advice. Yeah.
You know, I'm going to throw this out for you. If you are listening to this, oh, not listening, if you're watching the show and you're concerned about your mom and dad and they are visiting out here in Sabre Springs and Poway area or Rancho Bernardo, or they're in the coast, they could come by.
Absolutely.
In that morning, bring mom and dad by.
Absolutely.
And on Thanksgiving Day.
Yes.
And just kind of check it out. Maybe call you in advance.
Yeah.
But check it out. It would be a great opportunity to let them see what a wonderful and how well treated they will be at Belmont Village. So, Lori, thank you so much for coming on today. Sadie, thank you so much, and have a wonderful holiday, wonderful Thanksgiving to everybody at both Belmont Villages. And we will be right back with more Senior Stay or Go TV.
When you belong to a community, it makes you feel safe. It inspires you to thrive. It honors your achievements, and it makes you feel at home. For nearly 20 years, Belmont Village Senior Living has created communities that have enriched the lives of seniors and their families, providing places where seniors lead healthy, purposeful lives under the care of staff who truly understand their needs. Belmont Village offers assisted living, independent living, and memory care in a continuum that supports residents when care needs change and providing for couples of varying care needs.
It's nice that we can be together. She needs a little bit more care than I do, and I don't have to do any cooking or shopping.
Aging is a gift. We invite you to embrace it with us and be a part of our community and our family. Belmont Village Senior Living, the community built for life.
Good morning. Our next guests are Bob Skolout and Dean Tilghman with the Skolout and Tilghman Estate Company. And they have done a number of estate sales for our clients, and they are the absolute best. So welcome.
Hi, nice to be here.
Thank you guys.
Thank you
both for being here today.
Certainly, thank you for
we want
having
to
us.
take people through the logistics of what you really do and how involved you get in the process of an estate sale, as opposed to just seeing the sign out there on the weekends, as many people do. So I'll let you go first. Take us through, somebody calls you, what is the logistics and how does the process work?
After someone contacts us, what we'd like to do is set up an in-house appointment and do a preliminary evaluation of the contents and get a feel for what they're wanting to do for the estate. And there's no obligation or charge for the initial consultation, and we just kind of walk them through the steps of the process of setting up a sale and conducting it.
And what do you, when you walk into the home, what are you looking for? I mean, what's trying to catch your eye?
We're really looking at the entire contents and what's available, not only things of value, but in general how the estate sale would do relative to the entire contents.
And then if it wouldn't be appropriate to conduct an estate sale on site, we would make our recommendations what to do. There are alternatives. We can combine households with appropriate items that are compatible and would be appropriate for the sale, or we have the option to do buyouts, or if it makes more sense for them to consign to an antique store individual items or to make a donation.
And I want to bring up, I think it's a very important point before we go to the next question, is if you're planning on, if somebody's listening to this or watching this and they plan on having an estate sale tomorrow, it doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way.
And I can tell you firsthand, I mean, you did my mom's, after my mom passed,
Correct.
you did her sale. And when we walked into her home, it looked like a Nordstrom's or a Neiman Marcus had been conducted there, the way you guys spent the time cleaning and preparing everything. It was really beautiful, and it was a great testimonial to her, and the way she wanted everything done. So I appreciate it. But again, I just want, it doesn't happen overnight. You guys really take weeks to make sure to maximize the dollars.
We can work on a 3-week process. We usually like to have 4 to 6 weeks to set up a sale properly, because when we do go in to do an estate sale, absolutely everything is cleaned and polished. The house is totally restaged to maximize the earning potential for the items in the home.
I know.
And then if there are items of excess value, we have auction house placement available as well for the estate.
It's really beautiful.
Yeah, we work with auction houses on the East Coast, and it's normally sent back there of things of significant value.
So what would your recommendation be to homeowners or heirs who are thinking of conducting an estate sale, and what should they not do?
What they should do is take what they want and leave absolutely everything else. Throw nothing away, take what you want and walk out the door.
A lot of people are overwhelmed or embarrassed
Right.
by the condition of homes, and we've seen it all and we're used to it and we enjoy it.
We have no surprises.
Yeah, that's part of the intrigue of uncovering secret treasures.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, and I want to reiterate that point. Is people go, well, I took a lot of the stuff to Salvation Army and Goodwill, which is very nice, and I understand that, but what makes a great estate sale is really having exposure to everything and letting you guys decide
Exactly.
Correct.
how to market it.
Correct.
Goodwill and the donations are a great thing to do at the end of a sale, but
Right.
don't do it prior to a sale, and don't try to hold a garage sale, because then the property and the merchandise has been exposed, and to get return customers there is going to be very difficult.
Ah, okay. Okay, that's interesting. Do design trends have an impact on the value of, recently I had to sell my mom's treasures, and what were treasures and what are treasures today are two very different things. My mom had a lot of Yadros and Hummels and a lot of Lalique and Balique and all those wonderful things that she treasured.
Now, anybody under the age of X who's watching this
doesn't even know what that is.
And
it really had no value. It was really sad.
That's happened. And the internet, I think, has had a lot to do with that, as well as the younger people are no longer interested in a lot of the items their parents or family had. Design times have changed, and they're looking at more contemporary things, and they don't want all of that.
Yeah, they don't want the china, they don't want the silver, they don't want any of it.
No, basically not. Right.
what are the hot items? Is there a hot trend line that you're seeing?
Mid-century modern is very big right now,
Right.
and people are more
Oriental as well.
right.
Right.
High-end Oriental.
Right.
Middle-of-the-road Oriental has lost its value somewhat too. So, it's constantly changing, and when we price a sale now, it takes a lot more time to do the pricing, because we have to go on sale go online at the time of the sale and see what the prices are at that very time. So you can't go back a year or so and look at prices, because it's not
Yeah, and if you don't price that way, you're not going to sell the items, because people will come into the sale, they'll go on the internet to see if you have it priced properly. If you don't, they'll walk away. So you have to have it priced somewhat under even the internet prices in order to get it sold.
Wow.
Yeah, the people will come. The people will come just based on the fact that we're having the sale and they attend all of our sales. But you have to have it priced accordingly to, or appropriately to the internet.
So my 1906 pedal Singer sewing machine probably isn't worth a whole lot, even though it works.
No. I mean, actually not. Yeah.
Do you get involved with automobiles?
We do. We do automobiles as well.
So like a 1965 Mustang would be pretty valuable.
That'd be
If I had one, I'd let you know. I mean, my dad did have a 1963 GTO. Pontiac GTO. In obviously 1960, no longer, but I'm just saying, I'm thinking of all the cars that we've had over the years could have retired on that.
That Mustang.
The Mustang would have been nice. So your marketing, do you maintain a data? How do you market the sale?
We have an extensive email list that we developed, and we contact all of we send out emails prior to the sale. We advertise on estatesales.net, and usually just through estatesales.net we get 6,000 to 7,000 hits per sale.
Wow.
Really?
On the internet. Yeah.
Wow.
And
so you this is like a groupie following.
Groupie following, and actually it's a national following. We have clients from Texas and Georgia.
You have a reputation that you know how to do this.
We're also picking up on the internet advertising, and from the photographs that we take of the sale, and then they'll contact us and purchase items.
And then you'll ship. I mean, if people,
we do ship.
You ship, and obviously
we
just
do ship.
Whatever because shipping costs are astronomical. I mean, obviously maybe little items.
They're responsible for the shipping, and they don't mind doing it if they really want a piece. Yeah.
On our sale from Coronado that you had referred to us, we shipped back to, was that Georgia?
It was Georgia.
Georgia, they bought all the trains. An individual bought all the trains, and that was all shipped back to Georgia.
And that was a result of the advertising on estatesales.net.
Yeah, that was as a result of internet.
So the internet has been a blessing and a curse.
Both.
Both, yeah.
It really has.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because you do get the national, I mean, our sale, the next sale that we'll be doing, if you go to estatesales.net, they have a map of the United States, and anybody can go on it, and you can hit the state that you want, and then go to the cities, and so you can pick up every estate sale in the country if you want to.
If you did that, how many per weekend would you find on there?
If you
Is it hundreds
it would
across the
hundreds,
country?
hundreds across the country.
Probably more than that. I would think you would find hundreds in California alone.
Wow.
I would think so, yeah.
Because in San Diego County, I would say you probably would find, wouldn't you guess, maybe 30 on a weekend?
I would say probably 15 to 30.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what distinguishes your business from the other people that claim to be doing what you do.
We're very passionate about what we do. We've been doing it for about 32 years now.
Wow.
And we're both hands-on. We're there through the entire process. We have additional staff that we bring in during the sale, but Bob and I are there from the beginning to end of it. And we do all the pre and post.
We do the entire setup
Right.
of the sale.
You obviously know what works.
Right.
Been there, done that.
And we enjoy doing it.
Yeah, you guys do. You
We
guys
do.
Put heart and soul into it.
It's actually fun because you kind of think of it as someone's last presentation, and you want to make it as nice as possible.
Beautiful. Well, we thank you both for being here today, and we wish you a happy holiday season and a fantastic 2017, and continue to do great works here. And I know you travel beyond San Diego, so if somebody wants to call you for San Bernardino, Riverside, Orange County, you're ready to go.
San Francisco,
wherever we can go.
Yeah, wherever we go.
Well, we thank you. Thank you
so much.
And stay tuned for more Senior Stay or Go TV.
Good morning. Today it is my honor to introduce Paul Greenwood. He is the Deputy District Attorney here at the San Diego Attorney's Office, and he has been the lead prosecutor for elder abuse for over 20 years now. So we have a lot to talk about today, Paul.
Sure, thanks for having me.
Paul, thank you for joining us today. And before we get into the questions, we want to talk about Mum.
Yes.
How is that, am I saying? How's she doing? And tell us about that story in a little bit.
Yeah, well, a lot of the reason why I've been doing this kind of work for over 20 years is because of my parents. And sadly, I lost my dad, who was 92, about 20 months ago to advanced Alzheimer's, leaving my mother as a widow, who's still amazing me every day at age 93. She lives alone in the town that I grew up in south of England. But the one thing I pledged to her several years ago when Dad eventually moved into a nursing home was that I would stay in touch with her every single day, wherever possible. So at first, Ron, I would phone her every day from here back to England. But for the last 18 months, thanks to the wonders of technology with iPads, and I purchased her a mini iPad, for the last 18 months I've been FaceTiming my mother every single morning.
Awesome. Isn't that fabulous?
And I really try to endorse that wherever I go and encourage people of my age with an elderly parent living away from them to stay in touch as frequently as they can. Because as you know, you hear so many stories of people being ripped off, but one of the reasons why they do get ripped off is because their own children have abandoned their responsibility. You know?
They live in isolation.
They do.
In isolation.
And the predators seem to know exactly, instinctively, who to target when they suspect that somebody is living in an isolated bubble and they can move in on that person.
Well, let's talk about the news of October 2016, where you announced a big arrest of some scammers. Tell us about that and how that came about.
Yes, the DA's office had our own October surprise. Yeah, it was good. And it's something that we had to keep under wraps for a long time. How this all came to us was that a former colleague of mine, a former prosecutor, Jim Baker, came to me about 2 years ago, very upset. I could tell something was wrong, and he said, I've just discovered that my mother, of all people, who was 86 at the time, has become the victim of the grandma scam. And I mean, we've heard of that, how the crooks portray themselves as the grandson. I'm in jail, and in this instance, he portrayed himself as being in jail in Peru, and she believed it, and then they worked the scam to the point where she ended up driving all around the county of San Diego, something which she never would have done otherwise, purchasing what we call green dot prepaid cards to the tune of $65,000, believing that this was going to help her grandson get out of jail, get out of Peru, and get back to his Coast Guard officer job on the East Coast of America. So when Jim, my friend, found out about it, he was not only just shocked that his mother could fall for it, but also determined to do something about it. So he came to me, I got my office to agree that we should investigate it. And thanks to the amazing work of one of our investigators, he systematically, for about 15 months, tracked all the money, but in doing so, uncovered a labyrinth of a worldwide network of crooks who were doing all this scamming, whether it be the grandma scam, the IRS scam, the jury duty scam, and ultimately it all pointed back to a boiler room in India. So what happened 2 weeks ago, the U.S. Attorney's Office in Houston announced this indictment of all these suspects, including our suspect from Riverside County, as one of 52 people. And when they did their press conference, I went to Bonnie Dimonetadier and I said, I really think we should do our own press conference just to educate the folks here in San Diego that it can happen to us, but also to give kudos to our own investigator for doing a tireless work for so many months.
Well, congratulations, and hopefully it puts a dent.
A little dent.
We hope so, yes, because that suspect was arrested in Riverside and is now being transported back to Houston, where he will face charges with all the others. And because it's federal, because it crosses state and national lines, the exposure is far greater than what we could have done for him.
Well, congratulations on
That's
pursuing.
awesome.
Thank you.
So there are a number of scams, as you mentioned a few.
Yes.
Do these scams all have something in common that people can watch for or listen for? Or?
They do, and primarily it's the weapon of choice is the phone, the telephone, and the trademark is something's going to happen to you or to your family member if you don't do what we need you to do, which is pay money. And it's always somebody pretending to be either a family member or someone in a position of authority, as a sergeant from the sheriff's department or the jury commissioner or the IRS, claiming that you're going to be arrested. And the common denominator is they send out all these phone calls to thousands and thousands of people every day. And of course, many of those fall upon an elderly person living alone at home. And this phone call comes as a bolt out of the blue, and they panic. And they don't turn to anybody, because another denominator is that the crooks will often tell them, don't tell anybody, this has to be done quickly, it has to be done in secret, because otherwise something bad can happen to either you or your family member. So without thinking, they are paralyzed into fear. And the other common denominator is the type of transfer of how the money gets from the victim to the suspects. It's typically either through a Green Dot prepaid debit card, which you can purchase at Walmart or
and
CVS.
And you can't really trace, right?
Which you can't trace. Or now, because the crooks realize that we're onto them with the Green Dot cards, they're asking people to go and purchase iTunes, Apple cards of all things.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because you scratch that off the back and they have 14 digits. And as long as you pass those 14 digits on, that can be downloaded anywhere in the world.
Oh my gosh.
And then those crooks use those to purchase iPads or whatever it is and then sell them on the open market.
And I just want you to stress that this doesn't have to be a senior with limited capacity or anything like that. It could be anybody.
Well, that's precisely right, you know, because I think our profile is, oh, it's somebody with advanced dementia. No, we've had professionals. I mean, Jim Baker's own mother, the one I talked about at the beginning of this interview, very smart lady, a retired teacher, and she had all her wits about her. The one thing was she loves her grandson dearly. And that's what these predators thrive upon, is that emotional attachment, telling you that unless you do something, your grandson is going to be in danger. And once you hear that, logic disappears, you know.
So what is the lessons that we can learn from this? And I know you have something called the top 10 tips. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Well, looking at it from the perspective of a child, an adult son or daughter, if you have an elderly parent living alone, that in itself is a red flag, because we've got to wake up and realize that our elderly parent is today a sitting target. And that's why I stay in touch with my mother every single day, because of what I've learned over 20 years is that there are people out there who will wake up this morning and go, how can I rip off Mrs. Greenwood? You know, I mean, that's exactly what's going on. So we've built up these top 10 tips, and many of them are designed to make not just the adult children aware, but also the elderly people aware. And I'm not trying to make people paranoid, but I'm simply trying to raise the awareness out there that unfortunately the days when a handshake was good enough, when the warm, nice, emotional, kind, welcoming voice on the telephone was a nice thing to have happen to you, no, those days are gone. And unfortunately, we have to teach ourselves to be skeptical about everyone and everything that either phones us, sends us a letter, or knocks on the door. And those top 10 tips are based around that kind of attitude.
Scary.
Scary. I mean, for example, many of us, we may be faced with choosing a caregiver, right, at some point for a loved one. Well, you just don't go to Craigslist anymore. You don't go to the ads in the newspaper anymore. You have to go through a bonded, insured agency. And even though people tell me, but Mr. Greenwood, those cost more. Yeah, but you know what? You get what you pay for. And if you don't do that, then the chances are you're opening up to hiring a convicted felon.
And or even putting yourself at risk by not having the appropriate insurance for those people to be on the property. And
see, that's
workman's comp. I mean, the whole laundry
exactly
list, laundry list.
Right.
It just explodes.
It explodes. You're so right. And these crooks, for example, unlicensed contractors, if we hire somebody who's not licensed and then they trip and fall and they don't have workers' comp, they may turn around and sue you for allowing them onto your property. So.
So if someone in my family or a dear friend my mother-in-law's gotten the calls. Fortunately, she's been a little tricky herself in that she's gotten the grandma call, I'm in jail, and she'll say, who is this? And the other end of the phone said, well, it's your grandson. And she said, well, which one?
Good.
And then he hung up on her.
Of course. Yes.
Because she's not on Facebook, so we couldn't get a name from Facebook for her. But I'm sure there are a lot of grandparents who are on Facebook to keep up with their grandkids, and so that information is pretty easily accessible. And so someone could call and say, you know, it's your grandson Joe, and then it becomes much more believable. So what advice would you give to someone, like you said, who's so vulnerable, especially a grandmother to a grandchild?
Right, right. I just want to reassure people that, for example, the IRS, police, jails, they don't operate by phoning you and saying, hey, you need to send money. We just don't do it that way, thankfully, in the United States of America. It doesn't work that way. Only crooks work that way. So if you do get a call, be very skeptical anyway. And I always tell people, use caller ID, use your message machine. Don't automatically pick up the phone and answer it unless you know who's calling you. And if you don't recognize the number, why don't you let it go to message? Because if it is urgent, if it is important, they'll leave a message for you. And then, of course, if they leave a message which sounds a little suspicious, then do your due diligence and check with your neighbor, with your family, with somebody else that you trust, and say, look, I've had this call, what do you think? And 9 times out of 10, it's bogus, and you should leave it alone.
Well, and if you have a message on your machine, is that something that's even more traceable?
Yes, I mean, that's always good, because I'm always willing to receive those messages from the public, because then I get the phone numbers, I record them, and then and sometimes on a quiet morning, I will make that call myself, because I want to educate myself by talking to these crooks. And I've talked to so many of these crooks on the phone. I've recorded their messages as well, because I want to learn what script they use, what methods they use. And so I let them take me down the path to see how far they go with it before I drop the brick on them by saying, oh, by the way, this is the San Diego DA's office. Yeah.
Well, being in the holiday season as we are, is there a spike in any particular scam? I mean, the IRS is more only a March and April scam, I assume.
Right.
Is there a spike of any type of scam that we can advise them on in November, December?
Not really. These phone calls and these scams occur all year round. But what does happen more often in the holiday season is, unfortunately, your personal safety is compromised with identity theft. We're all very distracted, aren't we, in the holiday season? And one thing I'm constantly telling elderly, particularly female consumers, is when you go out shopping, and you're going and you're thinking 100 miles an hour of what I need to buy, you get distracted very quickly. The predators are out there looking for your purse sitting in the top part of that cart, and they will distract you very quickly, and they work in pairs, and they'll unzip your purse and remove your wallet. And by the time you get to the checkout lane and realize your wallet's missing,
it's too late.
It's too late. They've long gone, and you know what? They've already gone to the gas station to fill up with gas. They're so quick with these things. So that's what I always tell people at the holiday season: be much more aware of your surroundings and of your personal belongings, and try not to get too distracted, because the predators are going to be out there in the shopping malls.
What relationship should the consumer have, the elderly and the adult child have, with the bank and the credit unions today?
Great point, Ron. And number one, I really urge these financial institutions to take their responsibilities much more seriously about their obligations to the banks. Call them customers, right? And the credit unions call them members, because those financial institutions are indeed financially mandated reporters of suspected financial elder abuse. And some institutions, banks and credit unions, do a fabulous job of training their staff to look out. So, for example, victims of the grandma scam or the IRS scam who believe that they need to go to the bank or the credit union and withdraw $5,000 in cash. Now, I'm not being personal here, but when was the last time you and I withdrew $5,000 in cash from any financial institution? I can't think of a time when I ever have. And so any time that happens with an 85-year-old lady walking in and asking for $5,000 in cash, or a man, that should immediately put the teller on an alert. And that needs training. So they need to then bring the customer or the member into a private office, sit them down, which is what happened in Jim Baker's mother's case. Finally, the bank sat her down and asked her, has anyone called you? Has anyone said your grandson is in jail? And then that's when it all came to light. We need more bank tellers, more credit union tellers to be taking that responsibility and doing that. So I think institutions need to realize what their responsibility is and to be on the lookout much more for irregularities in the banking of their older customers.
And Paul, you traveled the world getting this message out. What words of pearls of wisdom, words of wisdom can you want to convey to the audience today that hopefully can put another dent into this?
Be proactive is my key. If your gut tells you that either your mother or father or an elderly grandparent or a neighbor down the street is acting differently, there's a shift in their behavior, because that's what one thing Jim Baker on the grandma scam says to me, Paul, I should have realized my mother was covering up on something because her whole daily routine was changing. And she was covering up to explain why she wasn't at home at a certain time of day or night, because she was driving all the way up to Fallbrook to purchase these Green Dot cards because the crooks were telling her go to different places. If you see a change in that person's behavior, let your gut tell you that's something wrong, and don't be afraid to call Adult Protective Services. We're going to have a number put up there. It's 1-800-510-2020. And unless you are a mandated reporter, you can remain anonymous. And nobody's going to criticize you for making that call. Nobody's going to say, why are you wasting our time? No, I would never say that. So that's my first thing. Go with your gut and be proactive. And secondly, for those adult sons and daughters out there, be more involved in your parents' lives. Stay in touch. Stay in touch if your parents will allow you to. And then thirdly, if you're an older adult, 65 or older, be street smart, be savvy, ask more questions, and don't always react immediately to a phone call, to a letter. Always check with a loved one, with a professional advisor. Check with somebody that you trust and who you respect before you ever commit to anything that's going to cost you money.
Thank you for that. And most important, where do you get to spend Christmas this year?
Well, we're going to be here in San Diego. Sadly, not with the grandkids. They were with us last year. But thankfully, our daughter and son-in-law who live in England have promised our twin granddaughters, when they turn 5 in February, then they'll come out hopefully for Easter or maybe in the summer. But we will be here. But I always go and try and make a visit to my mum straight after Christmas because my mum thankfully spends Christmas with my older sister, who's very, very good about making sure that Mum's not alone. And then I try to be there in the new year sometimes. So I'll spend a few days with my mum in early January.
Fantastic. Paul, thank you for being here today. I hope this message gets to everybody around the country because it's such an important issue and it's growing epidemically every day, as we know.
Well, thank you, and I want to thank you both because this is so important to get the word out there through the media. I can't spend my time going around to various places all the time. I need to be in court prosecuting the bad guys. So the message to get out there is so, so important. Well, so thank you for allowing me this opportunity.
Our pleasure.
Thank
you.
Our
pleasure.
And stay tuned for more Senior Stay or Go TV. Hi, my name is Ron Greenwald, and this is my business partner, Patty Gerke. And we wanted to take this time to first thank everybody for the tremendous support we continue to have with our program, Senior Stay or Go. And we also wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about what Patty and I do for our income during the day, other than we do a lot of senior advocacy, but we are also real estate agents here in San Diego County, working mainly and focused mainly on working with seniors and their families in terms of when it may become time to move mom or dad to a senior community or to downsize them from their home that they lived in for 40 or 50 years. And it's a very emotional process. And we really take pride in the work that we do in helping and supporting our seniors here in San Diego County. So the first question that comes up to us all the time, and I want to ask Patty to answer this, is when do you think is a good time to consult with a real estate agent or a realtor when you're maybe considering a change?
Well, earlier rather than later, because a lot of times, unfortunately, most of our seniors want to stay at home. So they, you know, the saying is, you'll get me out of here in a pine box. But the truth is to have the conversation sooner rather than later, if for no other reason than to make the home they're in safer. So as Ron mentioned, we advocate and educate on behalf of seniors and their family members all the time. And one of the things we do is work with interior designers who specialize in working with seniors and making their homes safe. And it's little things, it's not big things a lot of times that make a huge difference, because you don't want to make big changes. Big changes are hard for them to adapt to. But something as simple as making sure all the light bulbs are working so that they're not trying to get around in a dark space, making sure there aren't any cords that they can trip over, or area rugs that they can trip over. Just little simple things like that. So if they're going to stay in their home, they're going to stay there safely. And at least explore the options that are there. So many times families are forced to make a decision when an event occurs, and it's traumatic and it's immediate. And the truth is in today's environment, as the baby boomers age, there are more and more people who are anticipating and being proactive and moving into senior communities. So a lot of communities have waiting lists. So when you are ready, or you need to be ready because of an incident, where you want to be may not be available. So it's important, I think, to get out and see what's out there, see what fits your needs at the moment or what you feel most comfortable with, have meals, meet the people in the community, and then get your name on the waiting list. You can always, when they call you and say, we have something available, you can always say, you know what, I'm not ready, keep me on the list. But it's better to be proactive than reactive.
And that's so true. I mean, it could be a 5 to 10 year process for some people. I mean, and one of the things that we are really adamant about is as people age, we see a lot of deferred maintenance take over the home. Whether they see the deferred maintenance or they don't have the energy to deal with it, they don't have the capacity, some people don't have the capacity to deal with it. And that's really something that we really want to get the family involved with. We want to get what team is surrounding these folks in terms of who is their estate planning attorney, who is their financial advisor, who's really behind supporting this family. Because the beauty of what Patty and I do is we're actually out there visiting with these folks. A lot of the other professionals,
you go to
their office. So we have worked with some seniors 4 to 5 years in making sure before they made that commitment to a change, whether it was downsizing or to a senior community, we would visit them periodically and just help them with safety features within their home. So it's never too early or it can be too late, but it's never really too early just to understand what's out there. And you can make it a fun process.
Moving, period, anytime you move is a process. So if you take it in baby steps because you're proactive instead of reactive, it actually makes it a better experience.
So when it comes back to the question is when is the right time to call us, we'll come out and visit anytime.
Pretty much.
And give you our feedback as to what are some of the options, and then it's up to you to take it from there.
Exactly. Even just making sure that the smoke detectors in the house are working and there's a carbon monoxide detector in the home. Just safety issues.
A lot of little things get overlooked, and sometimes it doesn't work when the children are telling the parents what to do. So we can be your third-party eyes and ears. Spokesperson. where we love doing it because we have made a lot of improvements in people's lives just with little changes in the way they walk around the house.
Exactly.
So that answers the question. Thank you, Patty.
Well, the other question is, of course, we have situations where the parents have passed away or a loved one has passed away, and the successor trustee, children, whoever it may be, family member, family friend, is left with getting a phone call saying, guess what, you're in charge of this person's estate, so now what do you do? And that's very different when mom or dad are still living in their home and you're trying to make them safe or assist them in downsizing or moving to a senior community.
Yeah.
So how is that different?
Oh, they're both highly charged, they're both highly emotional, but obviously we're dealing with someone who's passed away, and we're dealing usually with the children or even the grandchildren of that person who's passed away. So it's a very emotional time for the family, and a lot of times everything is just left in that house and nothing's been touched. And again, if the family's all on the same page, then that's one area. If the family is not all on the same page, which is about a 50-50, you have to be very careful with the personal property. So a lot of times Patty and I will be asked to, I know this sounds, we'll just have to tell it like it is, we have to go and change the locks on the home so that one of the heirs is not in there taking all the personal property without authority. So it's being a successor trustee is a very, very time-consuming, big job. It's filled with pitfalls about fiduciary responsibility, money accounting, property accounting. And so again, how does that impact us is that we're part of that overall process. So we have to be very aware of who's in charge, and are you really in charge? You may think you're in charge, but no, this paperwork doesn't give you authority to do squat. So
was there even a trust, or is the property now in probate?
Right.
Does it need to go to court? Pretty much just communication is key, so that no one feels like they're being left out or decisions are being made without their consideration. I think that's the real key.
Yeah, it's a very process that takes a lot of time in the sense of patience and encouragement
and
understanding to do what's right for the family. Because again, they've lost their mom, they've lost their dad, they've lost a loved one, and we are very sensitive to that space and the sense of we don't go in, hey, great, let's sell the house. We're going to go, well, what is it that you want to accomplish here before we think about selling the house? So what else?
I think that pretty much covers it. You know, just ask the right questions, understand the situation, understand the emotions, and understand that it's a process for everybody, and everybody processes at a different rate and in a different way. So you just have to be very aware.
And that is Ron Greenwood and Patty Gerke with Senior Stay or Go, and we really appreciate you taking the time to listen to our advocacy on behalf of seniors.